Hey, it's Tony Byrne. This week I want to talk about seller's concession, seller paid closing costs, those kind of things. So I got the whiteboard out and we're going to break it down. As we start, I kind of want to talk about in a transaction, the sellers can pay for your closing costs. It can't cover your down payment, those kind of things. That you would have to use down payment assistance for. But the actual closing costs for the loan can be given to you by the sellers, and we'll talk a little bit more at the end of this about kind of strategies in this market to get them to have sellers pay your closing costs. But first, let's go over what, based on the loan program, what you can get from the sellers and go from there. So with FHA, the most you can get from a seller is 6%. With VA, the most you can get is 4%. There are some other guidelines that you may be able to get a little bit more, but talk to your lender about those because they depend on what you kind of pay for and those kind of things. And then conventional, if you put less than 10% down, the most you can get from a seller would be 3%. If you go from anywhere from 10.0% to 24.99%, the sellers can pay 6% of your closing costs, and anything over 25%, they can pay 9% of your closing costs. With USDA, they can pay up to 6% of your closing costs. On all investment properties with a conventional loan, the sellers are limited to paying 2% of your closing costs. One thing I think you need to think about in this market, because it is a seller's market and they have a choice as to which borrower they choose, and their bottom line is the bottom line, it's going to be a little bit tougher to get closing costs paid for. What I'm seeing and kind of with my clients is the most they're getting is 3%, and what they're typically doing is raising their offer by that certain amount to get the offer accepted, because obviously the seller's bottom line is affected by whether or not they pay your closing costs. One thing I would maybe recommend doing is getting an accurate picture of what your closing costs are from your lender before you go in and make an offer, and write, maybe, because it may be under 3% in closing costs, and give them an exact amount of what you need to get the offer accepted. That may lower the purchase price or whatever. So if you have any questions on any of this, please feel free to message below. I'd love it if you'd share this post. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.